does is reaches into your brain chemically and locates your happiest memory chemically, and then locks onto that emotion and freezes it chemically, and then it keeps you happy.
Chris? She's depressed, not stupid.
I want to talk about drugs.
Heroin!
No, not heroin.
My empire is crumbling!
And suddenly it hit me.
The name?
No, a bird. It hit my windshield. Gleaming X.
It's meant from monkey gum, you know.
This could be it.
Well, it's a strong maybe.
Well, it could be it. This could
It
be
might
it.
be. Jesus Christ! I think we got it! Yeah!
And who are you?
Just a guy.
Good evening. Welcome to this week's edition of the WayBack Movies Podcast, a show where we review the best and not so best of 80s and 90s cinema, because really, fuck the 2000s. My name is Steve, and with me on this crazy journey,
Justin.
Doctor.
Doctor.
And we're back for what I'm calling a very special episode. We are recording this on my 37th birthday.
In a row?
Yes.
Again, we've had this conversation off air.
Uh-huh.
We really should have kept clerks for today.
We really should have, because
Hindsight.
I have been referring to this as my my clerk day.
Hindsight.
It would have been nice. However, I'm still getting to cover one of my favorite things in the world, because as you can imagine, we are covering Kids in the Hall Brain Candy, and yeah, there's practically nothing on this movie. So most of this is just going to be a history of the Kids in the Hall. So
hey, it's the only chance
I'm
we're going
cool
to get
with
to do it.
Exactly.
They didn't make another movie.
They didn't.
So
not for lack of attempt,
No.
but they never got around to making it. I will get to that in the future. But either way, I still get to talk about one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Well, for me, but
and if you like the
fuck
Kids
you.
in the Hall,
Yeah.
which I'm sure
You'll
a lot
enjoy
of
it.
people out there have.
yeah. And if you don't, fuck you. It's my
Well,
birthday.
we'll see you
I'm
next
allowed.
week.
Yeah. So yeah, with that being said, I guess we should just jump right in as you make all of the noise.
Yep.
Yeah, so we will go back to a date that I forgot in front of me, April 2nd, 1996. So here we are in 1996. I actually did see this movie in theaters because, as I think we mentioned with Basketball, same thing, in Canada this was not rated R. It was rated 14A because language doesn't rate that far in Canada. We're not too worried about language, and there's no...
I'm not too worried about much. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Nudity. There's a lot of stuff that you can get away with in Canada
Exactly.
as far as the film board's... Not the
So-
film board, but like whatever rating system's concerned.
Yeah, I mean, this in fact, this might be the last movie I ever saw with my sister.
Like in theaters?
Yeah. As far as I know, we never went to another movie that I can think of, anyway. Our movie taste definitely shifted post this. But I was always a huge fan of Kids in the Hall long before, I was old enough to understand most of the jokes.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was wacky and fun. You can imagine how happy I was years later when I watched it as an adult and I got more of the jokes. I was like, this might be the greatest show ever. And something I will get into, this film was also filmed on the street I grew up in, parts of it. The scenes with the main character, Scott's main character, can't remember his name. Wally, yes. The house that he was living in was one of my babysitters growing up.
Okay.
Doris. She was not pleased when she saw the final product. And the street, when he sings the I'm Gay song, that street was the street I grew up on for the first 17 years of my life. They filmed it there. I remember it. I've heard that song 3 billion times. For the end of my life, I will remember every single lyric of that song because I heard it 1,000 times.
Was it also the scene when he's naked and he's holding himself?
I was there for most of that, but they were filming it at night. and I think
Because I can only imagine what like actual like people that are not in the movie are thinking. Like, what are they doing?
The thing is, they ran through that a bunch of times, and he was wearing pajamas.
Oh, okay.
And then my guess is when the
cameras were rolling.
when the little-ins went to bed, because I was out there while it was dark, but then eventually, like when I saw the movie, I'm like, he was never naked. He was wearing striped pajamas. I remember it clearly. But he, I'm guessing they were just making sure that all kids were gone, and then he stripped down.
Nude.
Yeah, so that was, but I remember it very clearly. I met all of them that were there. Like, I didn't meet Dave because he wasn't there. We'll get into why that is during the info on this. But yeah, this movie means a lot to me just simply because I love The Kids in the Hall, and that's what we're going to mostly be talking about, because I got to tell you, there's less than a page of stuff on the movie, but I got 5 pages of notes, so it's mostly about The Kids in the Hall, so bear with me here. So, Kids in the Hall Brain Candy, April 2nd, 1996, directed by Kelly Macon, writers Norm Hiscock, Bruce McCullough, Kevin McDonald, Mark McGinney, and Scott Thompson. Produced by Lorne Michaels, production company Lakeshore Entertainment, distributor Paramount Pictures, a box office of $2.6 million. I couldn't find a budget.
Yeah. It couldn't have been high.
However, I did notice that this movie was either, and we'll get into potentially why, but this movie was never touted to make a lot of money. It never opened on a lot of screens. Its highest amount of screens at one time was 467.
Okay.
Most movies start at well over 1,000. So this was, This is
independent.
Well, it's not, because it was made directly with Paramount Pictures.
Oh, okay, well, yeah.
But, and Lakeshore is a company that's been around for a while, but it was never expected to make money, or, from what I will get into later, maybe they just kind of went, fuck you guys, we're not promoting it. I'll get into why that is. Ironically, it's something that we mentioned earlier today, in a different conversation. But anyway, let's get into the most difficult part of reading these notes. The cast.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Try to keep up.
David Foley. Marv, psychiatrist, new guy, Raymond Herdicure. Bruce McCullough. Alice, Cisco, Grievo, worm pill scientist, cop number 2, cancer boy, white trash man, who's also named Sid. Kevin McDonald, Dr. Chris Cooper, Doreen, Chris's dad, and Lacey. Mark McGinney. Simon, Don Roeder, Cabby, Gunther, cop number 1, Nina Bedford, Melanie, drill sergeant, white trash woman named Charisse. Scott Thompson. Baxter, Mrs. Herdicure, Wally Terzinski, Malik, Big Stummy Scientist, The Queen, Raj, and Klemptor. So that's your cast. It's just The Kids in the Hall.
Yep. And various
other people who have a line here and there. Not worth mentioning.
Except for Brendan Fraser.
Yes, but again, cameo, uncredited. Can't necessarily use him. I did originally have him written down, but what was the point?
No. He's only in a scene.
A scene,
or two.
Handful of lines. Yeah. One scene, actually.
Well, he's in the scene with his lines, and then when they're all breaking out of the thing...
Is he there?
He's there.
Is he one of them?
He's one of them.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, he's one of them.
All right. Excuse me. I got a frog in my throat that will not go away. I apologize for my coughing. So basically, like I said, let's just start giving a history of The Kids in the Hall. So The Kids in the Hall began as 2 separate comedy groups. In Calgary, Mark and Bruce performed in a group called The Audience, with Norm Hiscock and others, who would eventually become writers on the TV series, and Norm co-writing this movie. The Audience is admittedly a terrible joke. The idea was, when they got introduced, it would say, "Ladies and gentlemen, The Audience." Very bad joke. In Toronto, Dave and Kevin were in a group called The Kids in the Hall, with other people. The name came from a story Dave had heard about comedian Sid Caesar having joke writers waiting to feed him lines that he called The Kids in the Hall. Dave also likened it to bad kids in school always got sent out to the hall. In 1984, the 2 groups met in Toronto and merged into one troupe very quickly after meeting for joint stage shows. Several people would join and quit over the next couple of years. One person was a theater actor named Scott Thompson, who, at a midnight show, found donuts the kids had taped under the chairs in the audience for a later sketch. He began throwing them at the stage just to make sure the kids knew who he was. He joined shortly thereafter. The kids dressing in drag came about because they needed female characters, and women didn't stay long in the troupe, so it was born out of necessity, with Dave saying, Every time a woman performed with us, she'd get hired by Second City. So they never stuck around long enough. They made a point of the joke never coming from it being a man in a dress. They always wanted the joke to come from the character, not the fact that it was a man in drag. They were on the verge of breaking up when a club in Toronto called the Rivoli gave them a revolving 3 or 4 nights a week and a weekend show. SNL talent scouts were in Toronto looking at Second City for writers. They saw a good review in a newspaper and decided to check the Kids in the Hall out. Originally, Bruce and Mark went to become writers on the show, but producer and creator of SNL, Lorne Michaels, liked them as a unit and worked with them to develop a pilot for a TV series. The pilot and the TV series aired on CBC in Canada and HBO in the US for 3 seasons, moving to CBS for the final 2 seasons. The show aired from 1989 to 1994. Making the show, be it theater or TV or movie, was very difficult on all the members. They would get into crazy screaming matches with each other on every sketch, which Dave commented, "It's a good and a bad thing. It's bad, obviously, because it takes a hard toll on you, but it's good on you." Sorry, I wrote my shit wrong.
Yeah.
But it's good because every sketch had to pass all 5 of them before they felt it was ready.
Which is probably the best.
Yeah. But this fighting would ultimately cause the troupe to break up periodically. After 5 seasons, they all felt like it was enough, except for Mark, who wanted to keep going, and ended the show, and much like their main inspiration, Monty Python, they immediately went into production on this movie. So the production of this movie. Production on the film began in 1994, just 2 weeks after filming the last scene for the TV series. The kids, along with their series head writer Norm Hiscock, spent 2 weeks at an Ontario spa to brainstorm. In the period of a month, Dave's marriage broke up, one of Kevin's parents died, and Scott's brother committed suicide. Dave Foley originally had a much larger role in the writing of the script and in the film, with more characters and scenes, but he quit the troupe in the middle of the writing due to dissatisfaction with the script and the usual internal fighting, saying it was just one fight too many. He agreed to sign a contract and be in the movie so, quote, the other guys could get paid. He recalled, "At the time there was a certain amount of arrogance on my part, where I thought I don't need it anymore. I stopped valuing what the Kids in the Hall were to me." In most of his scenes, Dave is usually by himself or not really with the entire troupe, which people have read into as him not wanting to be around the rest of them, which Kevin claims is completely false. It just happened by accident. Dave also finished filming first, but that was to accommodate his shooting schedule for his sitcom News Radio. Which, by the way, if you've never seen it, you should, because it's fucking fantastic.
Well, that's what I was gonna... I mean, I know we've had these conversations before, but, like, out of all of these guys, I'm pretty sure Dave's the one that hit the most.
Yeah.
He's been in movies. He's starred in movies, like
American
movies.
They all kind of have. But his is the one that, like, I think he was in, like, A Bug's Life or something like that. Like, he's the main character in that. Like, he did that, and he also did, like, Blast from the Past, which we'll get to.
The Wrong Man.
Wrong Guy, which actually didn't do well. And that was Canadian.
Not the point.
However, I fucking love that movie. We'll get there, too.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, he at the time,
and
News
Radio was a
News
hit.
Radio was not... It wasn't a ratings juggernaut, but it has become one of those great cult TV series that everyone just sort of goes, "Oh my god, you got to see this show. It's genius." And it really is. It's a fantastic TV series. But yeah, Dave probably is the most successful. However, oddly enough, none of them seem to ever really be hurting for work, except maybe Mark. Because Mark went on to SNL and did not do well.
I think he was on the season that people call one of the worst seasons
Probably,
of all time.
yeah.
One of the worst casts of all time, and he's on that group.
Well, I don't know if they would say the worst cast, because there have been some pretty shitty ones in the 80s that people really hate on, and he wasn't in that. But it was definitely not a strong season, and he only was there for half of it.
Yeah.
And he did not come back. So it was not really well done, and he doesn't work that often. He only seems to work now when, like, his friends ask him to. More likely the Kids in the Hall ask him to.
Sitting on that Kids in the Hall money.
I don't think that's true. The original title for the film was The Drug, but Paramount felt it was not a marketable title for a comedy. Gleeman X is referred to as The Drug throughout the film, and never Brain Candy. If you watch the movie, there's a shit ton of, like, the drug. because that was intended to
Brain
be the movie.
candy is not uttered once.
No.
By anybody.
But there's certain things, like when Chris becomes like